Notice of the time, date, location, and agenda of this meeting, to the extent then known, was provided at least 48 hours prior to the commencement of this meeting in the following manner, pursuant to the provisions of Chapter 231 of the Law of 1975, by posting such notice on the bulletin board in the municipal building and by email notification generated by IQM2 to the offices of the Independent Press, Bloomfield Life, Star Ledger, Patch, Baristana, and Tap into Bloomfield. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Louise, please call the roll.
Councilwoman Mundell?
Here.
Councilman Joanna?
Here.
Councilwoman Cruz?
Here.
Councilwoman Davis?
Here.
Councilman Gamble?
Here.
Councilman Rockwell?
Here.
Mayor Venezia?
Here.
All present.
Do we have anybody here for public comment? Okay. Township Administrator?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. First item is the introduction of our new qualified purchasing agent, Teresa Carson. Teresa comes to us with many years of experience. She'll get into some specifics about her experience. Decision was made to have Teresa assigned to the administrator's office. Recognized that we wanted to incorporate some continuity and some it's an opportunity for us to have all the department heads on the same sheet of music with regard to the purchasing. So the last couple of weeks, both Kim and Teresa have been putting together a fairly comprehensive purchasing manual. It talks about different bid thresholds, the responsibilities, and ultimately that will result in some cost savings for the township and some uniformity across the board throughout all the departments in the town, and ultimately some cost savings to the township once we get up and running with the QPA. So, Teresa, if you'd like to step up and introduce yourself, thank you.
Hello, good evening, Mayor and Council. How you guys doing?
We're
Good,
doing
how are
great.
you?
Good. I just wanted to give you guys a little background on myself. My name is Teresa, and I am excited to be the new QPA Township here of Bloomfield. I come with a very extensive background. I have a master's degree in business administration, and I also want to let you guys know that I am certified with the state of New Jersey as a qualified purchasing agent. And because I have such a passion for purchasing, I just went and took a national exam. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that. It's called the CPPO, and I just took that this past Saturday. So I'm looking for my results. It's going to take about 6 to 8 weeks. So I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm really serious about this purchasing thing. Let you guys know about that. But I came from the state of New Jersey, which is the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. I was a procurement officer for them for about 8 months, and my primary role was to procure professional services. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, but you know they're like a small bank. I'm gonna say like a big bank, and it's ran under Governor Murphy, so they make sure that they look out for a lot of small businesses in the state of New Jersey. I also worked for the city of Newark for a total of 12 years, again in the purchasing sector. So, you know, I used to work for the courts. I worked for the municipal courts, and I also did a lot of procuring of professional services for, you know, translation services and a lot of other small purchases that I did for all of the judges and some of the prosecutors that were there. And then I worked for the Department of Water and Sewer for the city of New York, and I did that for the last 6 years. And I also was responsible for all of the contracts for the entire department. So I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the City of New York Water Department. It's very big. We have 5 locations. We had the Quantic Water Treatment Plant where all the water ran into like some of the small towns, and we had Cedar Road. We also have Walls, which where we hosted our lab where we did most of the lab tests, and I procured services for that as well. And we also had a fleet. We did most of our fleets of our trucks that goes underground. guys a little brief background of, my experience and my knowledge and how I plan to apply it here at the Township of Bloomfield, and I'm really excited.
Perfect. Thank you, Teresa. Welcome
Teresa,
aboard.
Very much.
Thank you very much, Teresa.
Number 2.
Number 2 is specifically recommendations regarding an ordinance modification for signs, but I just want to preface this with, I know that we've been talking for quite some time with regard to planning, and we sort of broke it down into 3 buckets. The first being the review of the master plan. I know that we talked about the master plan a few times, and the last master plan in its entirety was introduced in 2002. And then re-examinations were conducted in 2008, and then again in 2014. They have to be conducted every 10 years, the re-examinations, which were well within that time frame. Problem being is we have to make a determination as to whether or not the 2002 master plan is actually a good foundation for us to work off of to do another re-examination. So as we speak, the planning section, Bonnie Flynn specifically, is in the process of conducting or having conducted an environmental resource inventory, which will provide us with some information to make the first determination of whether we want to move forward with a re-examination of the current master plan or start over with a master plan. So we're in the process of gathering enough information so we can make a determination where we want to go from here, whether we get the re-exam done or look at redoing the master plan. Okay. So that's one piece of the planning stage. The second is the ordinance changes with regard to zoning board recommendations. Yearly, the zoning board prepares a memorandum to the mayor and council with recommendations to address some of the issues that we've experienced with regard to the zoning board. We had a backlog of cases, some of which we felt probably could have been expedited if we had some minor and reasonable changes made to these ordinances that affect the zoning applications. So that's the second piece of this that we're going to look at. We're going to look at the reports from last year and the previous year prepared by the zoning board attorney and determine what ordinances we can adjust to help address the zoning board backlog. For right now, what we did is we implemented an additional monthly meeting so we were able to deal with the backlog, but we may be able to facilitate that better moving forward. The third piece of this is the sign ordinance. I know that this has been a topic of conversation for some time. Bonnie has solicited input from Mike Marucci, and got some changes. So what we're going to produce is the current ordinance with the recommended changes for you all to look at, give us some feedback, and then in a couple weeks, Bonnie will be able to produce a finalized, with the help of Mike Parlavecchio, a finalized recommendation for some ordinance changes with regard to the sign ordinance. And the other last little piece that's kind of floating out there is the mural policy. And again, Mike Parlavecchio and I had met a couple times with regard to that, but we will get back to that and have a recommendation for you all in the near future. So Bonnie, if you want to...
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As the Administrator mentioned, the board attorney, Michael Rubin, board engineer, have reviewed the last several years of the year-end zoning reports. Also just their experience on the board and seeing variances and what comes before the board and like Anthony said, what could be changed. So he did do a comprehensive change of the entire chapter 315. Tonight we're just talking very briefly about the sign ordinance because we didn't want to get that kind of carved out, that portion of the change for 315, chapter 315, and get that going. So hopefully we'll have that, actually the draft to you. You might have seen the prior drafts. Actually it was before COVID, I think you're looking at it. But just to highlight a few things, and also the BCA, board of the BCA was heavily involved with the changes, of course, collateral commercial properties are in that special improvement district. So, in general, the ordinance gives more flexibility to property owners. One huge piece that has been a concern is internally lit signs. They are for multi-tenant buildings, mixed-use buildings, and we are increasing slightly the percentage of coverage for window and door. So that is just a few examples of the proposed. So we will get you the draft. I don't know if you want to have probably a subcommittee might delay things, but I'm open to meetings. If you want to create a subcommittee, we can just get this piece off the ground and then revisit in the future, the rest of the chapter that we have to issue. So.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions, comments? Councilwoman Davis?
So I'm glad that we're doing the work on going back, like looking at the things that we constantly need to be addressing, and I'm glad that that's being addressed. But the question that you brought up a little bit before about the, whether we should use the 2002 framing, I mean, one of the things that I would be really enthusiastically supportive of or be happy to see would be, just a little bit, have an opportunity for us to get back to the drawing board and really actually think about, what do we know about 2021? What do we know about urban environments or dense environments, suburban, urban spaces, and what are the best practices? And I don't know, or at least I don't feel like I'm getting information about those kinds of things, and I think I would like to see more, from the experts, meaning people who are in the area of planning and so forth, talking and bringing to us ideas and alternatives about how, and just the big picture, just that I think it's time for us to revisit it. It's been 7 years, and the world has literally turned upside down.
Right.
And so we need to, anything that we're working on that was 20 years ago as a base is not probably a good place.
Right.
Yeah, and I think having the environmental resource inventory done now is a great first step. It kind of creates the baseline, and we're going to have a lot of mapping provided by CME. The Environmental Commercial Commission is working with CME, and they just actually released a few maps to the group. Was it today? No, last week. So that's a great baseline, a great start to get us kind of a snapshot in time where we are with land use, soils, hydrology, the flood zones, all that kind of those features of our town, and then kind of build from there. And absolutely, like you said, what have we learned recently? And packages and lobbies, all those kind of weird, silly little things that you want to add to it. Loading zones. We have a parking problem, parking location problem, maybe not a parking problem capacity-wise, but everyone wants it right there. So how do we look at all that stuff?
And how do we drive people, make it convenient?
Yeah, and there's also a new requirement from the state, and I'll read it because it's a mouthful. We have to incorporate climate change-related hazard vulnerability assessment in our master plan land use element. So that's basically looking at resilience and what we've learned in the past, and certainly impacts for life. So we're going to be digging into that, and the state has a great website for that, and there's also a session at the week that I'm going to be going to. So digging into that too.
I think we're going to find that we're in such a different place today than we were in 2002, that working off of that old foundation is most likely not going to work out. But I think once we get more information, we'll be in a better place to make that determination.
Anybody have any other questions, comments? Okay, thanks. Number 3.
Chief Venezia?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The wholesale developer and partners are looking to enter into an automatic rate agreement. This is similar to something we already do when we have fires in the backup. It's called mutual. It's a long-term practice. What automatic aid does is speed up the process instead of waiting until we are on scene and confirm a working fire. Not only truck and a double engine with the dispatch, as soon as we're dispatched, to speed up the response. So it increases the safety for everybody in the community, for firefighters themselves. It also helps us meet NFPA standards and get a better score for insurance services organization.
Okay, does anybody have any questions, comments? Okay.
Number 4.
Number 4 is just updating wording to the code as it pertains to fire pits.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions, comments? Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
Number 5.
Rest of them, directors of mail.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Number 5 on the agenda is a request from us to enter into a second agreement with Jobs for Blue. Jobs for Blue is an outside firm that handles our outside employment. We see the officers doing road construction or working at stores. It's an excellent program for us, but let's just keep everything fair and equitable, and it blocks any officer from working more than the amount of time that they work in a single day. The only difference in this agreement is that it has an end date, which will be December 31st of 2023, and the rate changes from 6% to 8%. That has no effect on us. It doesn't cost us anything for this. The cost factor comes from the vendor or the construction company that's hiring the police officers to work.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions, comments? Okay. Number 6.
Number 6 is the acceptance of a safe and secure grant for 2022 in the amount of $32,400.
Okay. Any comments, questions? Okay. And number 7.
Number 7 are 2 handicap parking requests, 119 Lexington and 11 Chapman. The Traffic Bureau has vetted them and they approved both of them.
Okay. Any questions, comments on this, guys? Okay. Number 8.
Okay, number 8 is an ordinance amending Chapter 75, Article 1 of the Police Department ordinance. Basically, what this addresses is our hiring process. As I'm sure most of you know, the state has adopted Title 11, which is a new way that civil service towns can hire police officers. We no longer have to be relying only upon the civil service list, but it gives us the opportunity to hire people that are already certified by the Police Training Commission in the basic course for police officer. That would apply to somebody who's already a police officer in a different municipality, or somebody who's put themselves through a state-certified police academy in what's called the alternate route program. The law was created in the interest of departments like ours being able to create diversity outside of the civil service list, and this resolution is the first step in us being able to use that program to hire police officers in the future.
Okay. Anybody else? Anybody have any questions, comments? Okay. Thank you. And number 9?
Number 9 is it's just a technicality of something that we also have to have in place in the department to be able to use Title 11 to hire police officers. It's a anti-nepotism policy. We went to our accreditation people who review and examine all of our policies, went with the statewide one, tweaked it to fit us, and we've reviewed it, and we're just going to be adding that to our policies and procedures in the police department.
Okay. And number 10?
Number 10 is the public safety report for the month of October. In the month of October, complaints against personnel currently sit at 45 for the year compared to 44 at the same time last year, which is a 2% increase. However, for the month, we have 0 complaints that were made by citizens. The increase at this point is being driven by internal complaints based on rule violations by police officers that we're acting upon on our own within the police department. Like I said, for the month of October, there were no external complaints made by citizens. The 2 internal complaints that we had for this month was a dispatcher who was in training, improperly provided CJIS information over the telephone. The dispatcher was imposed as a result of that was retraining and a written reprimand. Second internal complaint was we had 2 civilian employees within the Detective Bureau encounter each other in activities that we deemed to be outside of the color of and unbecoming of a police department employee. The one employee who initiated the problem was issued a written warning and will be receiving retraining as well. We had no early warning systems for the month of October on any of our police officers. We had 1 use of force incident for the month. During the course of a theft arrest, the suspect became belligerent and was spitting at the police officers. They used a compliance hold to get him in custody and under control, and ultimately was arrested without injury. We had 1 police pursuit for the month of October, resulted from an ALPR hit from a vehicle that was wanted for being stolen out of Newark. It was a quick pursuit that initiated, and the supervisor broke it off immediately. For the month of October, we had 424 motor vehicle stops total, which you were supplied with the information on those stops. We had a total of 43 arrests for the month of October. 37 of those 43 were initiated by calls for service from citizens. 6 were initiated internally by our police officers. Overall crime in the township, we're at 461 Part 1 crimes for year 2021, which is down 5% from 484 from last year. And I also included in your package the 6-year trend where crime was and how it's continuing to drop each year. New initiatives for the month. We commenced happily with our joint crisis intervention initiative with the health department. They're out in the field every day working right now. We came up with a name for the team and unit called CARE, and that would be stand for Creating a Resilient Environment. We're getting all the loose ends tied up now. We're going to be working together with Vision Media to get a press release available so we can let everybody know exactly what the program is and what it has to offer to our residents. We're also commencing on a pilot program this month with our TIP 411 system, which is our system that lets residents send anonymous tips into us and also for us to put information out to those who are registered. What this will do, we'll connect with our CAD system, and anyone who is dealing with the police department in any manner, who's making a report involved in an accident, whatever it may be, the CAD system will generate notification to them, whether it be by text message, email, with the information that we obtain, and it's a citizen satisfaction survey. So it would enable us to look at each individual encounter police officers are having with the public and see what the public thinks about it. Not just something where we mail it out and we get it back in one time. This would be an ongoing process for every time somebody has it. It would generate, and when they send them in, we get to review them on a daily basis. I think it's an excellent tool for us, especially with the citizen satisfaction concept that we have with our police officers. Training for the month of October, several of our detectives received FBI advanced interview and interrogation techniques. Several of our officers received effective communications hosted by the Fairleigh Dickinson University. Those are mid-level managers in the department or lieutenants. The entire department received the Attorney General Guidelines on Use of Force training module again. And the entire department received motor vehicle pursuit training module as it's about to change on January 1st. And there's going to be a lot less things that officers are going to be able to engage in a police pursuit for, and a different system's going to be in place for them to even request to do that. And that concludes my report for the month of October. I'll take any questions anyone may have.
Anybody have any questions, comments?
Thank you for the report. I'm excited about the CARE program, and looking forward to see the press to share what it is with people, because I think it's really special. I don't know how many other townships are doing it. It feels very like we're first out there, so thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Township Attorney.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Item number 1 is related to the discussion we had at our previous meeting regarding the Sacred Heart Church's desire to redevelop their former school building site. At that meeting, you'll recall there was a proposal made, or the church went out for proposals to have a redeveloper come in and make and bid on that site. It's now being leased to a redeveloper who is proposing residential units on that site between Bloomfield Avenue and State Street. At the last meeting, we talked about amending the Phase 2 plan of the redevelopment, the township's redevelopment plan, to allow for the construction of that type of residential building there. The plan only allows for mixed use, so you would have to have residential above commercial, but they didn't want to put commercial there, and frankly, the church didn't really want it either. So we were going to amend that. What I'm presenting to you today is a little tweak on that. We got additional information from the attorneys for the redeveloper. One of the lots that's being redeveloped on that site is not within that Phase 2 plan. So we would need to do something different and have the planning board do what's called a non-condemnation redevelopment study. Non-condemnation meaning redevelopment without the use of the township's taking power. So there would be nothing like that. It would have to be redeveloped on their own. But we would have them do an investigation of the entire site rather than try to not only amend the current Phase 2 plan, but then add another piece into it. It didn't make sense anymore. So this is similar to what we did last time, but it's got a little bit different name. So it's directing the planning board to undertake this investigation for redevelopment of that that block and the 5 lots that are being redeveloped, particularly it's lots 10, 15, 41, 42, and 46, all on that Sacred Heart School site. They would then come back, it's the same process. The recommendation would come back to the mayor and council, and we would proceed from there whether or not we would designate the development and the developer of that site.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Michael?
And I'm sorry, Mayor, we are seeking action on that tonight. With the way the calendar rolls out, tomorrow night is the planning board meeting, so we wanted to make sure they had this in front of them rather than having to wait until December or January for this. And you'll also see on the action part of the meeting that will rescind the resolution that I talked about from the last meeting. Item number 2 is a proposed amendment to our recently adopted retail cannabis establishment ordinance. Currently, 6 total retail establishments are allowed townwide, with 2 per, they're not technically the wards as we would have your council wards broken up, but they're close enough. Currently, it's the max of 2 per ward. There's been a great deal of interest, and I think there's an opportunity. We think there's an opportunity to have more if you were interested. And this amendment would increase the number of townwide permitted establishments from 6 to 8, while allowing no more than 3 in any one particular sector. The idea being, and what we had talked about when this ordinance originally was brought up, was not to put all of the establishment in any one zone. So you'd still have a maximum of 3 per ward, for lack of a better argument. But we've had a lot of interest, and we are still making half of those available for the small businesses.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions, comments? Councilwoman Davis?
So I don't think I missed the part about why we would be expanding it.
Okay, there's been a lot of interest from potential retailers and from the small type, and I'm just
Micro.
blanking out, thank you, the micro businesses. And our business zones, really, to fill some of the vacancies, we thought there's a demand from retailers to fill some of these spots. So instead of limiting the number from 6 townwide, it would be 8 townwide. That would be, we put in our own cap of 6. This would increase the cap from 6 to 8.
My only real concern is that we really don't, this is new territory.
Sure.
And we're treading out there, and we have not like actually, had to deal with the externalities associated with this. So I'm wondering if, I guess I'm just not convinced that just because there's demand for it is a reason that we should have more of them in our town. So I'm not sure if that's if there are different categories of it, like if there's if they're all dispensaries,
Well,
is that the right word? A retail front?
retail, but also the, I think the bigger issue is the smaller, quote-unquote, micro and social justice licenses. I think that's where we're seeing a bigger interest instead of the larger type licenses. That's why it's
Can they be,
it's from a, I mean, it has to be under 2,500 square feet, which most of our businesses are, where we don't have that many that are over 2,500 square feet. And then this also opens up some, I believe, the zoning in the redevelopment zone for more licenses possible.
Yeah, because we have swaths of what are now commercial areas that are not open to these zones. And that's something we're also going to be looking into, is maybe, I mentioned phase 2 of the redevelopment plan, talking about Sacred Heart. But similar to other zoning things, Phase 2 may have outlived its usefulness from the mid-2000s.
I think we're on Phase 7 now.
You know, it was there to stimulate growth and development, and it certainly has done that. And with every development that's come up that's in that Phase 1 and Phase 2 area, we've wound up, or not we, but the township has wound up putting little particular redevelopment plans for each development. So the green is its own little redevelopment plan. Avalon is its own little redevelopment plan and things like that. So it stimulated and spurred development, but it's kind of dated at this point in terms of the type of retail and really even the design standards of the residential places.
Yeah. So back to the idea
Yep.
of 6 or 8, and I'm still just not convinced that we need to expand. I mean, I don't know what my colleagues feel. I'd love to hear from you all, but I feel like there's like this, if you go to 8, it's hard to pull it back. But it's always easier to next year expand it to 8 or next spring or something like that. But it just seems like right now, unless there's some other thing that I'm missing in terms of, I hear you about the social justice or the smaller aspects of it. But then I'm imagining what does that look like when we spread that around the town? You know, spread so many locations. I guess it's just like, this goes back to a little bit of what I was, I think, alluding to Bonnie, I guess she left. That there's, you know, what's the impact? Like, how does it change how is it impacting the fiber of our town? These are things that I don't know. Oh, she's coming back in. You know, I guess, yeah.
Well, if you look
Nick
at,
has his hand up.
if you look at Rise, which is opened as a medical facility right now, and I mean, just looking at what it's done to the neighborhood, it took a building that was run down, and it's actually a nice looking building, and you wouldn't even know what's actually there. You know, you would think it's kind of like a medical office, the way it looks, and they're eventually gonna be transferred to also recreational. Just something like that, like, so you don't know, I get what you're saying, where a lot of it is kind of like, we don't know where we're going, but we could also pull it back. What we were looking to do is expand on the micro level, to do it where we give smaller local people the better opportunity instead of somebody like Rise, which is technically a national firm.
Can we build that into the ordinance?
Yeah.
So that they're tiered by small or large?
Yeah.
Well, we have that. We have, currently of the 6 that are permitted totally, half of those have to be micro business,
So
have
can we do
micro
the same
licenses,
thing?
which the
If
state
we go to
gives.
8, can we do
Oh, yeah,
3 and
yeah.
5
It would be
instead of
4,
half?
you know, or you could do.
Or can we do 2 and 6, or 3 and 5?
Of course you could.
So, I mean, let's keep it like that, 3 and 5, or,
So 5 micro,
yeah,
Well, let's only.
5 micro / social justice,
right,
or social equity, I think it's called, yeah.
social equity.
I have a question about, and it might have said this in the original, is the distance in between them. So if you're looking at Broad Street, how many would that permit along Broad in distance from each other, you know? Like, I
Well,
wouldn't want to
that's-
create like a little
Yeah.
district of places.
I agree with you there.
I wouldn't want that.
And some places are excluded from it, so I mentioned the green before. Any
Property that got a
development
pilot.
that has a pilot or some sort of tax incentive program, it can't have a licensed marijuana facility or cannabis facility. So some of those places, the statute kind of carves out and says you can't have it, whether we want it to zone for it or not. But
But nothing specific about distance between.
no, we could put that in too, you know, if maybe it's X hundred feet from each other. And again, you'd not have more than 3 in any one particular area.
Yeah.
That's really part of it, so they don't get, right, you don't build up. you
2
don't
right
put
next
all
to each
6
other.
or 8 in one neighborhood.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
And I think I live around the corner from the one that's open, and again, to just reiterate what the mayor said, the neighborhood already has improved in terms of cleanliness and
Yeah.
how things look and stuff, so, you know, we can't, I want to make guarantee that whoever else comes does something similar too, so.
Councilman Joanna?
I kind of think that we're off on a journey we've never been before, and that's true. And what we're suggesting here, going from 6, 2 in each ward, to 3, no more than 3 by adding 2, I don't know how that formula works. But simply, this requires, in my opinion, greater review by the planning board, because we're talking about potential zoning changes. We need to identify certain sections of town that would be more applicable to the smaller type, as the mayor suggested, under 25 square, as to someone who's seeking a license can look at a map of our
This went in
township.
front of the planning board already.
But, you know, today, at this meeting, barring a month ago, we proposed total 6. Now we're coming back to increase it by 2. Are we going to be back here in another month for another 2, depending on demand? At some point in time, I think we can't knee-jerk this, and there may be many more potential applicants. And every 6 months later, we have one, as Councilman Cruz has suggested, which had a beneficial change to the neighborhood. That's our bounce-off point, to look how the neighborhood has changed, what the impact on traffic is, what's the impact on crime, all these factors that come in, and it gives us good information to go forward with other particular sectors of town. I just think sometime within a month, again, we're back to increase. We simply do not know going forward. And as Councilwoman Davis said, it's always easier to go forward, go 2 forward and not to go 3 back. So that doesn't fly. I would suggest greater consideration to those particular areas of town, clearly identify, and if there's potential zoning changes to be made, let's have that done before we start to chop up in additional applicants, is my thought.
And Mayor, what we would have to do, to Councilman Joanno's point, I had mentioned taking away that Phase 2 plan for certain.
Right.
And returning it to a central business district. That would have to go to the planning board. Similarly, the way we're saying, directing them to investigate that, I would recommend we did that too, to see how these would fit in that central business district of, let's say, Bloomfield Avenue near Broad Street, where it feeds off to Broad Street. Right. That whole area that's currently in the Phase 2, but maybe it's better suited to be central business again.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a way to,
You're good.
This is going to run my zip code. If you know what I'm saying.
Is there a way that we can say, maybe do the, with our 8, have it be so that it's 6 now, and then we do like another 2 in roll, so that it becomes, instead of everything at one time, we've actually tiered the giving, what's the word? The administration of the permits or licenses. There's a better word.
The zoning approval.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is there a way we could stagger it?
Yeah,
like
so that we perhaps, everything doesn't happen this, not this year. But
Oh, yeah, you won't see everything happen in the beginning.
No, we don't even have, nobody's
We don't even have the application from the
Nobody's even
state
been
yet.
licensed yet. I think what we're anticipating is once the state comes around to actually licensing the people, we may get.
We're not actually looking at actual applications yet?
No, the state hasn't
It's just
even,
the
State hasn't-
interest.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just people who are interested asking, is this zone appropriate, is this area appropriate?
So let's separate the two, because let's look at, right now, we need something to go into the planning board to get rid of the,
Basically a zone, almost akin to a zone change.
to get rid of the Phase 2 of the
Phase 2,
redevelopment.
yeah.
So that's number 1. And then we could
Then we could look at the numbers.
look at the numbers in the next couple of weeks, but we may have to act quick on this because the applications may be out at the end of the month. So, I mean, it's also supposedly could be out in February, so.
So what I can do is prepare for our regular meeting, a referral to the planning board for, to look into that, returning the Phase 2 area into the central business district. So it's
Yeah.
more suitable for these kind of businesses. And then it gives more opportunity for the smaller stores, fill some vacancies. And to your point, Councilwoman Davis, is that we can, see how that fits and then look at numbers if it's appropriate, in the next year.
Why don't we put it on for an item for action to send for tomorrow
Send
with
it
the
tomorrow.
Sacred Heart?
Yeah, I need a resolution, though. Could do that. Yeah, I mean, I guess we could,
Just add on
and
to
just
the
follow
existing
it.
resolution.
Yeah, if you have the act of the council, would be to eliminate the Phase 2 plan and return that area to Central Business District.
Okay.
So if you wanted to do that tonight, I mean, on motion, and then we,
Right.
and I'll give the, I'll write it up to the planning board for tomorrow morning.
Does anybody have?
Just a question on that. I guess, what other implications would that have? Not on just this type of business, but I would think there would be an impact to other uses with that zoning change.
What it would change is, we have the example of Sacred Heart, so you're allowed to have, it would open it up to different types of, to the types of development that have been permitted in the areas anyway. So for instance, in the Phase 2, there was no single-use residential, so you couldn't build a 5-story building just residential, it had to have commercial, but those have been getting carved out over the years anyway. So in the Central Business District zone, it would be, you wouldn't be curtailed by what Phase 2 doesn't permit. But that's what they would be looking into. They would put side by side, and I don't have the two zones in front of me, but what the planning board would look at is side by side. If it's CBD, what does it allow versus what Phase 2 allows? It's not that big of an area, frankly, but it's pretty much Bloomfield Avenue.
I think the western part of Bloomfield
Yeah.
Ave from 2 Broad Street all the way to Sacred Heart.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Okay. Finance Director.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Item number 1, the BPI is an annual exercise to assess and evaluate the operations of the township across various departments. The results must be discussed at a public meeting. The state asks that you score 15 or greater for our results. We scored a total of 21.5 points, so we did well. Item 2. This is cancellation of old and stale dated checks. This is just routine housekeeping to clear out our old AP checks, and the auditors recommend this. Item 3, a dedication by rider for community gardens. This is basically the protocol for creating a trust account so we could properly account for donations and fundraising. So we have to submit this to the Division of Local Government Services at the state.
Okay. Number 4.
Number 4 through 15, they all relate to grants that we've accumulated throughout the year. And when it's not captured in the adopted budget, we have to do a Chapter 159 to insert them. So I'll just run through them quick. Number 4, the Health Department was awarded the Social Services for the Homeless Grant from the County of Essex, $110,500. Item 5, the Health Department was awarded a Strengthening Vulnerable Populations Grant from the State of New Jersey Department of Health, $142,236. Item 6, the Police Department was awarded the Body Armor Replacement Grant from the State of New Jersey for $8,909.44. Item 7, the Administrator's Office was awarded a Clean Fleet Electric Vehicle Incentive Grant from the State of New Jersey. This amount is $8,000. Item 8, The clerk's office in DPW was awarded the Clean Communities Grant from the state of New Jersey for $81,272.68. Item 9, the fire department was awarded the Assistance to Firefighters Grant COVID-19 supplemental from the Department of Homeland Security, $9,107.67 with a 10% match of $910.77. Item 10, the police department was awarded the body worn cameras grant from the state of New Jersey, and this amount is $264,940. Item 11, the rec department was awarded the Royd grant. It's recreational opportunities for individuals with disabilities from the state of New Jersey Department of Community Affairs. This was $20,000 with the required township match of $4,000. Number 12, the Essex County Local Arts Grant was awarded to the rec department. This came from the County of Essex for $1,800. Number 13, the engineering department was awarded the Transit Village Program Lackawanna Station Sidewalk Improvement Grant from the state of New Jersey DOT for $380,000. Number 14, the police department was awarded the Bulletproof Vest Partnership Grant from the Bureau of Justice Assistance, and this was $10,790. And lastly, Director DeMayo actually spoke of this one today. It just came in. The Safe and Secure Communities Grant was awarded to police. That's $32,400. That's everything.
Does anybody have any questions or comments for Cormac? Thank you, Cormac.
Thank you.
Township Clerk?
Thank you, Mayor. We have another ABC transfer. This is from Casa Tirano, and it's going to be transferred to 5 LC Italian LLC, also located at 1099 Broad Street. These are the owners of the Brookside. They're actually purchasing Michael DeSario's license from Casa Tirano and Parkside, and they're transferring that over to 1099 Broad Street, the location of Brookside, down a couple of storefronts. And you have in your packet a review from the police department, background information, and all of the particulars, and everything is in order for transfer on the 22nd.
Okay. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Can I get a second? Second, Councilwoman Davis. Any questions, comments? All in favor? Aye. Township Council, Councilwoman Cruz.
Hi. I just wanted to get an update from the July meeting. There was a recommendation about planning updates and how we can kind of move things along a little faster for people who are doing small projects versus big projects. And so I wanted to see if there was any update on that, or remind everyone to get back to that if it hadn't been addressed yet.
So with regard to the zoning backlog that we had, we implemented a second meeting to facilitate some of that backlog. I think that's what we were discussing. So from as we speak, we're pretty much caught up in the zoning backlog. Some of the things that I talked about before will long-term affect that. Once we take the report from the zoning board attorney and make some changes to our current zoning requirements, we probably will facilitate that process as well, because less people for small repairs and additions. If there's some zoning requirements now that aren't, become the same thing time after time and delaying the process, we could probably adjust the zoning ordinances so they wouldn't have to go before the board for those type of repairs or additions. So that's all in the works. That's all part of this whole planning process. That would really be that after we get through the sign ordinance piece, we're going to then focus on those zoning changes to facilitate the zoning board.
Thank you. I think there was a second part, and maybe Councilman Davis, you can refresh my memory. We were talking about some sort of council input and review on new development to make sure there's some consistency, and anybody remembers? There was a little bit of conversation there. So I wanted to see if we could pick that up again as well. Basically, it was just kind of convening to see new projects, how we can advise new development about, maintaining kind of the feel and look of how things would go in Bloomfield historically. So just kind of where to begin on that, to pick that up again.
That's actually connected. Yeah. That's actually connected to the questions I was asking, right, about our master plan, and there is this sort of granular, we're just like focusing on, it's granular, but it's also big picture, like zoning and that aspect of it. But the other part of it is like the, what do we want? What do we desire
Right.
in these areas? Where do we want to grow into? And again, informed by what specialists know about this.
Right, and I think some of that will come, I'm sorry, some of that will come to fruition when we, analyze where we're at with regard to the master plan moving forward.
Number two?
Yes, no problem. And then for the garden committee ordinance, there's just been a request from the committee to have some updates to the ordinance, which include like adding in Millbrook Bank, which is not currently there, and some things like increasing volunteer hours and just some, a few bullet points, changes to ordinance that I'll prepare to send in for coming up to the next meeting. So.
Okay.
Okay. Number 3?
Yes, Mayor and Council, a recommendation to the Recycling Committee. There is a vacancy, and the gentleman is Wayne Rydell, and that's the recommendation for appointment to the Recycling Committee.
Okay. Can I get somebody to move this?
Motion?
Second, Councilman Davis. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Liaison reports?
I have one, Mayor.
Councilman Mundell?
Just to let everybody know, our last farmers market for the season is taking place tomorrow outside the library. It has been a successful 8 weeks, I think, and I think it's demonstrated to everybody that this time was right to bring a farmers market to Bloomfield. There's been a lot of interest and attention for it, so we're really excited to see what happens next year. I look forward to working with the township to really resource the market and move it forward. And I just wanted to take the opportunity, too, to thank Diana Avilas, the DPW, Health and Human Services, the Administrator's Office, and the Police and Fire Department for your support getting this off the ground. So, thank you.
Anybody else? Councilman Joanno?
Yes, we had an absolutely outstanding paper shredding event on Saturday. And as always, it's a cumulative effect of DPW, volunteers from the recycling committee, our recycling coordinator, Luis Pelagano, and certainly the residents who participated. Just the weather was great, and I think as my colleague to my left is always astounded by, 7.06 tons, folks, 14,122 pounds of paper were shredded successfully to the pleasure of individuals who needed secure shredding in front of their own eyes. This is all my financials into the bucket, into the shredder, and again, we will continue that service to the residents of the community. And every year it seems to be, it expands, and it was located at Pulaski Park in the parking lot. We took it away from Broad Street for traffic issues. It became a much, much better scenario, and the police officer who was there to assist traffic, it was just a wonderful all the way around with our DP, with everyone, as a group effort to get people in, get people out, smile with the service, and we'll see you next year. And we're anticipating in the springtime of doing another event for individuals. The other update will be from the recycling committee is that next May, as we know, single-use plastic bags, styrofoam will be banned no longer. The recycling committee, through our recycling coordinator, we have our cloth multi-purpose bags. We're seeking those individual businesses who like to have their logo on our bags. Anyone interested can certainly contact our recycling coordinator, Luis Pelagano, through the website at lpelagano@Bloomfield, TWPNJ, or at 973-259-3162. I'd ask that this also, if it's not already there, be on our website for residents and businesses to get their logo on our bag, which will be distributed at various recycling events which promotes small businesses. See your name, see your logo, we'll get it out there. But be aware, and I just say this now because folks don't do well with change, but this is months in advance, that the reusable bags certainly are a big plus, and we do twice a year townwide cleanups. Plastic bags are a horror story. They pollute our rivers, our oceans. They're just a mess, and DPW find them all, they're just horrible. So the fact that they come going forward, they're not going to be around anymore. And I say to this community, there are only a handful of us. When I say us, police, fire, DPW, there are 53,000 plus of you all out there. If each one were to assume a very positive attitude about litter, clean up behind yourself. I'm not here to preach, but it makes our job a bit easier, and it makes our community cleaner, and we can all be proud of it. But it's no single person. It's a group effort that we all can make this a better place if we all contribute. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Anybody else? Councilman Gamble?
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to highlight two events that are upcoming. So this Thursday, November 11th, we have a Veterans Day parade that will start at the Town Hall steps at 11:30 a.m. and march north on Franklin Street to the Veterans Monument. And there will be a brief ceremony approximately at 11:45. We will also have a holiday tree and menorah and Kinara lighting on Monday, November 29th at Town Hall at 6:30 p.m. We will have cookies, hot chocolate, singing, ice sculptures, and the lighting of the trees, the menorah, and the Kinara, along with a visit from Santa. And I don't know if Councilwoman Davis, it's also probably going to be the kickoff of the season of giving.
Yes, it is.
But give you a little plug there.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yep.
Councilwoman Cruz?
Just for the garden committee, wanted to say that the season is ending on Saturday, and the two gardens donated 715 pounds of produce to the local food banks, which is awesome. And also that there'll be a third ward community meeting online tomorrow, or Wednesday at 7 p.m., streaming live or on Facebook.
Perfect. Can I have well, actually, let's move forward to items for action before we go into closed session. Michael, you want to take number one?
Want me to read it?
Yep.
Number one is a resolution authorizing the planning board of the Township of Bloomfield to undertake an investigation for redevelopment of property identified on the tax maps of the Township of Bloomfield as Block 244, lots 10, 15, 46, 41, and 42, as set forth herein without the use of the power of eminent domain, in accordance with the procedures of the local redevelopment and housing law, and to provide recommendations to mayor and council of the Township of Bloomfield.
Okay. Can I get somebody to move this?
Move it.
Moved by Councilman Joanno, second Councilwoman Davis. Any questions or comments? Louise, please call the roll.
Councilwoman Mendel?
Yes.
Councilman Joanno?
Yes.
Councilwoman Cruz?
Yes.
Councilwoman Davis?
Yes.
Councilman Gamble?
Yes.
Councilman Rockwell?
Yes.
Mayor Venezia?
Yes. Number two, Councilwoman Mundell.
Mayor and Council, I have a resolution rescinding resolution number 9673, directing the Township of Bloomfield Planning Board to investigate and prepare an amendment or revision to the Bloomfield Center redevelopment Phase 2. So moved.
Second.
Second, Councilman Joanno. Any questions or comments? Louise, please call the roll.
Councilwoman Mendel?
Yes.
Councilman Joanno?
Yes.
Councilwoman Cruz?
Yes.
Councilwoman Davis?
Yes.
Councilman Gamble?
Yes.
Councilman Rockwell?
Yes.
Mayor Venezia?
Yes. And number three, Councilman Joanno.
Mayor and Council, the Township of Bloomfield approval bill list for November 8th, 2021. So moved.
Second, Councilwoman Davis. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Mayor, did you want me to put something on the record for a motion for the other part we discussed, telling the planning board
Yes.
to look at? Okay. This is half winging it, so
Okay.
bear with me. It would be a resolution authorizing the planning board to undertake an investigation of returning what is currently the Bloomfield Center redevelopment plan Phase 2, also known as the Phase 2 plan, and returning it to the Central Business District.
Okay, moved by Councilwoman Mondell, second Councilman Joanno. Are there any questions or comments? Louise, please call the roll.
Councilwoman Mandel?
Yes.
Councilman Joanna?
Yes.
Councilwoman Cruz?
Yes.
Councilwoman Davis?
Yes.
Councilman Gamble?
Yes.
Councilman Rockwell?
Yes.
Mayor Venezia?
Yes. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion?
Closed session.
Closed session. Well, I mean, all in favor? Aye.